Alrighty. I have talked a lot in the last hour or so, but we are coming to the end of this mini series. We've talked about the information elements so far. I'm going to talk about the functions, and I'm not going to go into too much depth. I might get all the functions in this one video. So, um, again, I'm going to reiterate. Oh, and by the way, in case you're just clicking on this and you weren't privy to what's happening, I am making a series, so you can go ahead, check out all the other videos. I'm going to put a playlist link down below, as well as a Discord link for our community. We've got a beautiful community, super great. Hope you check it out. Play games, talk about socionics, typology, philosophy, spirituality, all kinds of great stuff. Listen to music together, all kinds of cool stuff. So, and just socialize. So everyone's welcome. Hope you enjoy it. It's a wonderful family. So, anyways, that's a summary. We're going to dive into the functions of socionics now. We've gone over all the information elements, sensing, or what I call concrete information, abstract information, or intuition, as well as logic and ethics. Now we're going to get into the functions. So all the different placeholders in a personality. So like I said before, we have types of information and we have the slots in the personality. So what do I mean slots? Well, it can go a few different ways, right? These slots are essentially the way in which this information arises in one's life, right? Um, so to give you an example, actually, let's just dive into it, and I think you'll understand. Okay, so for the first distinction to be made is that you have valued and unvalued functions. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Uh, the valued functions you have are the base, or the worldview, the creative, the mobilizing, or what I call maverick, and the suggestive. Now, um, these these are all the information types that you value, right? Now, each of these have a different a role in someone's life. The ones you don't value are your ignoring, your demonstrative, your polar, or what they call point of least resistance. Another word that's a little bit easier is blind spot. I call it oblivious. And then you have your adaptive or role function. So these are the unvalued elements, the ones that you don't necessarily care for. So another really important thing to mention is that your valued elements are going to be tied together by poles. So for example, if you are an Ni type, you're going to value not only Ni, but you're also going to value Se. Okay. And if you value logic, if you value Ti, you're not only going to value Ti, but you're also going to value Fe, right? And that's an example for me. I value all of those things. I'm a IEI, which is a Ni type first, Fe type, Fe creative. So I have Ni base or worldview, Fe creative, Ti mobilizing, and Se suggestive. So those are all the 4 valued elements. Whereas my unvalued elements are Ne, sorry, I'm blanking, Fi, Te, and Si. So those are my unvalued elements. So that's a good depiction of the two. Now, the sorry, I'm spacing out a little bit. That's the important things to point out first, is the valued and unvalued elements. Got lost for a minute there. I think I'm also kind of lagging. Got lost for a minute there, but no worries. Next thing we're going to talk about is how these functions interact. So primarily, you have your worldview element, and one of the ways we're going to distinctualize these different types of elements is based off of its range of capability or strength. Now, I'm going to call this dimensionality to make it simple. But I don't want to get into all the technicalities of dimensionality. It's its own problem. So I'm just going to keep it simple by explaining it as strength. Okay. So basically, with a type, you have 4-dimensional element, 3-dimensional element, 2-dimensional element, and 1-dimensional element. So basically, with a 4-dimensional element, you see it in so much nuance. You perceive that information really clearly. Whereas with a 1-dimensional element, it's not clear at all. In fact, it's so bad that you probably just need help with it. You need someone else to help you. So yeah, there's that. And then there's a 2-dimensional element, which is something that you can work on, that you probably do like working on, or at least for the valued ones, you can work on. It's not super weak. And then you have your 3-dimensional elements, which are pretty competent, but not as central to your personality as your base. So anyways, so that's important to note. 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional, 1-dimensional. First 4-dimensional element we have is the worldview element. So, or the worldview function. So, or the base function, which means that this is essentially the way in which you see the world. It's your primary mode of perception. And it's funny because this is like being a fish in water, right? You don't even know you're in water. You're swimming all through it. It's all around you. You're engulfed in it. It's in your bloodstream. You don't even know, right? It's like you're not even, like, it's just so obvious to you. And so yeah, that's you probably take it for granted. So that's your base element. Whereas your next element would be your creative. So your creative often helps your base. It's usually in support of your base, and it's another big part of your ego, right? Which is your in this case, it's FE for myself. So the creative is typically something that it's not like your prime objective, it's not like your primary focus, but it's something that you kind of dabble with, right? It's something you kind of like to play with. You don't take too seriously for its own sake. But yeah, so then after that you have your mobilizing, or what I call your maverick function. And what this function is it's something that you want to work on, it's something you want to get better at, probably take pride in when you do well. But you don't have a lot of energy for it, and it can drain you over time. It's something that you probably get a little bit arrogant about or cocky about. You may do it and then and then it's kind of like high risk, high reward. You're not really that great, so you're kind of relying on the stakes, if that makes sense. That's a good example of the mobilizing element. So people are typically pretty good with this element, or at least they like to be. It's their primary focal point of growth, whereas their suggestive element is pretty bad. They need a lot of help with their suggestive element. Suggestive element, the reason it's called suggestive is because it's likely that someone who's pretty good at it, or someone who's much better, could probably just tell you that you need to do it, and you'll probably just take that information at face value. You're not really you're not really that skilled in that type of information. So you either, one, take it as it is, or two, reject it completely, right? You can't do a lot of processing around it. So yeah, that's an important aspect of that function, the suggestive. Those are all your valued elements. Okay. For your unvalued, you have the ignoring, which is something that you do pretty well. It's three-dimensional, but it's not that great. So for myself, I'm an IEI. My base element or worldview element is introverted intuition. So for my ignoring, it's going to be extroverted intuition. So this one's three-dimensional. It's at the top, of course, because it's next to introverted intuition, if we're looking at it from an MBTI stack point of view. They're both at the top, but this one's three-dimensional. Something you're really good at, but you don't really care for it. It's not really something that you're focused on because you're so involved with your worldview element that this is just kind of an engine for your worldview element. It's generating everything that it is only to feed the ultimate purpose of fulfilling your worldview. So that's what the ignoring position is. Now for the demonstrative element, this is a unvalued element as well. It's four-dimensional though. So for the four-dimensional element, or the demonstrative element, you perceive this extremely well, right? Something that you understand with a lot of nuance, but it's like a pain in the ass. Like you understand it, but you don't care about it. It's annoying. In fact, I've never found anybody, or there may be one or two people, which I've heard. It's very rare for someone not to be extremely annoyed by their demonstrative. I think people are generally just pretty annoyed with it. Like, it's just a pain. It's that thing that you understand. You're like, it's obvious to you, but you're like, we need to be doing this, not that. The demonstrative is just annoying because you have, like, for example, if I'm an IEI, my demonstrative is introverted ethics, right? So it's that polarity we were talking about earlier. Now, my creative is extroverted ethics. So this is what I value, but my demonstrative is much stronger. So I perceive this with a lot of clarity and a lot of nuance. But to me, I don't value it. So what ends up happening, it kind of gets abandoned for its own cause. People that value introverted ethics use it in a certain way, about this push and pull between relationships and creating strong bonds. Whereas for someone like myself, I just want to remove it. I perceive it really well, but I'm thinking, well, I understand this information. It's obvious to me, but I want to translate it to extroverted ethics. I want to make sure that the atmosphere is clear. So while I understand and perceive this polarity between people, I'm almost annoyed by it. I'm like, oh my God, not this again, And I just want to come through, and I want to clear the air, and that's essentially the that's a good example of introverted ethics translating to extroverted ethics, and that's what happens with the demonstrative. The demonstrative is the thing you understand, but the thing that you don't really like for its own causes, and you want to translate it to its opposite or its counterpart, which would be if it's introverted to its extroverted element, it's extroverted to its introverted element. So that that's an important part of the demonstrative. The next part is what I call the oblivious element, which is your element that you do not perceive at all. You don't even care about it. So while with the suggestive you were bad at it and you cared about it, with this one you're bad at it and you don't care about it. So it's pretty bad. It's the void of one's personality. You could say it's like a black hole. It's just the one thing that is just so clearly missing. what I think of is Elon Musk having absolutely no introverted sensation. Basically, he doesn't know how to maintain himself. He's like, he doesn't know how to ensure that he's getting proper like relaxation. He hates vacations. Says vacations will kill you. Like, I I probably shouldn't have mentioned Elon Musk because some people think he's ILE, which if you think that, you're wrong. You need to spend more time studying him. But um, yeah, he's an LIE, which means he has no sense of introverted sensation. The dude overworks himself to death. Um, yeah, it's really sad. Uh, and that's like everyone has that polar element. So there is always going to be one thing that the person is missing, um, and missing to the extreme. They don't give any attention to it. And so for myself, that's pragmatism, or what you would call, um, what I call logic utility. So efficiency. It's not something I even think about. I don't even know how to approach it. It's just totally, I don't even understand. I don't even know where to start. And uh, that's kind of an example, I guess. So yeah, the polar is pretty bad. It's missing, or what you would call the oblivious, or sorry, yeah, oblivious or blind function. The next one is the role, and this is also unvalued along with the blind. The role is two-dimensional, whereas this last one was one-dimensional. This the role is two-dimensional, so it's it's pretty it's it comes in handy. It's what I call the adaptive element. It's kind of like, oh well, what I'm doing right now isn't working. You can shift to your role for just a moment to kind of help you gain perspective. So the way I noticed this with my dual is, he may think that someone's saying one thing, right? And he uses extrovert intuition to kind of say, well, is there an alternative here? It very logically appears to be that he's saying this, but there could be an alternative where he is saying this instead. And that little bit of a shift that you're seeing there is an example of an adaptive element, right? It's not something that you give your attention to very often, but you can direct your attention to it. So for myself, that's introverted sensation. I can direct my attention to my environment, to my body, but it very quickly subsides. Um, you know, I could try to focus on it, but I will just get absorbed right back into my base. So yeah, with the you can think of it. I don't know where I heard this, but I heard someone describe it like elastic. Um, it's like you're trying to pull a certain direction, and then you can't really maintain it. Like, so eventually it snaps back to the main, to the base. So that's what happens with the adaptive element. So yeah, some important things to point out here is that the demonstrative is and the base are such strong influences to the type, but you'll always, it's so interesting to look at the demonstrative element, the four-dimensional function that you sacrifice for your creative. It's very interesting because it's like someone's abandoning the whole purpose of that element for something else, and they're doing it well. So it's really fascinating to see that dynamic. It's one of the strongest aspects of the type, in my opinion. So, for myself, my ability to take these conflicts, these polar dispositions that people have to one another, and to seek to clear the air between them, something that I do really well. In fact, I honestly sometimes don't even know how it happens. I'm like that was way too easy. Like I didn't even feel like I was trying with that, and it worked. And that's something that you'll see with those elements. Really fascinating, and to see the interchange between those two is really fascinating. So yeah, the I think that um, that's pretty thorough. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything here. Well, okay, yeah, I am. So for the suggestive element, you're gonna want to work on that. That's gonna be something that it's kind of like probably your life goal or the one thing you recognize to be missing in your life, that you really want to do better on and that you care for. It's just like you're kind of handicapped. So you could use help from someone who knows that information element much better than you do. Um, that's a pretty important aspect of a type. So yeah. Um, I think, now that I think about it, I think I've covered a lot about the functions, at least the basics. Um, I don't really get into the complexities, to be honest with you. I think I think it's overcomplicated a lot of times, but that is the basic idea. Those are the most important aspects of the functions. And I really hope that it made sense for everybody. If you have any questions, you could comment down below, but I highly recommend popping onto the server. We have a lot of really smart people on the Discord server that I created. Um, Really great community. We do all kinds of stuff on there. We talk about socionics, we talk about philosophy, spirituality. We talk about what am I missing? Like sociology, like society. We just hang out, we talk, we chill, we relax, and we play video games. We have Minecraft on there too. So there's a lot of different things that we do. I want to end up uh, having like a movie night as well. So that's something that we do there. It's a really great community. Highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, you can go there and ask me questions as well. But whatever you do, go ahead, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, and I'll see you guys soon. So if you guys want me to do those type descriptions, you can request that. That'll be a whole different kind of video, but and maybe I can even explain how to type people in Socionics as well. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys so much. You have a beautiful day. Peace.